Metroid Prime Remastered is really good. And it's kind of weird because, listen, I'll be honest. I played this game, I was a kid. I was a wee little baby. I played it first on GameCube. I had to have been like 5 years old. Okay, I have like vague memories of this game, but I remember loving it when I was a kid. And I specifically remember like aesthetically and atmospherically the impact it had on me when I was a kid, so very impressionable. But revisiting it now in HD, remastered on the Switch, on a big TV, because I mean, listen, I played it on GameCube on like a little tiny like CRT TV. It's crazy to me, for me to realize like how much this game probably informed my opinions of games, and not even just games, but like media now. Because in reality, besides maybe Wind Waker or Ocarina of Time, it was probably like the first type of game like that that I played. The sort of, you know, obviously it's Metroid Prime, so Metroidvania, but I also find like nowadays as an adult, I'm a huge fan of From Software games. Dark Souls, one of my favorite series. I love Elden Ring. Thinking about Dark Souls in the same context, in the same vein as Metroid Prime, very similar. You know, backtracking, exploration of the environments, the way the story is told. It makes me realize, I'm like, oh shit, like this is why I like all of this stuff nowadays. This is why I love like Dark Souls and Elden Ring. And I think it's because when I was a little kid, I played Metroid Prime and it impacted me so much that like that just infected the way I look at games. The sort of like lack of hand-holding. And that's crazy to me that like this game came out in 2002 and it's a remaster, but it's not like Dead Space Remake. Like they didn't like, you know, rebuild the game or anything like that. So it's like the game we're getting now is the game we got 20 years ago, but it's so good. And I think to me that says a lot about where modern games are, that like, you know, 20 years ago a game came out that doesn't hold your hand, doesn't like stuff you with like text or story or exposition. And it also just kind of throws you in, like it starts. The game just starts and you go and you experience it. And it actually, surprisingly, despite some backtracking moments, has a very like rapid pace through its like, you know, the pace you go through the game and the world and the story, but then also the pace you get upgrades. Like I remember that first couple hours, I was getting like an upgrade every like 30 minutes. And I'm like, damn, there's more? Like, and then you just keep getting upgrades throughout the game. It's like, which feels very rewarding. Like the progression is very tight and very rewarding compared to nowadays where, you know, you'll have a quest or a mission that goes on for like 5 hours and then you finish it and you're like, oh, here's a little, you know, participation award. Nice. I feel great for spending my time that way. But it's so, the experience of this game is so tight knit and like well-rounded that it makes me think back to like game development back then, 20 years ago, heck, even 15 years ago. Really, I feel like even a decade ago, that these games were put together with such passion and care that the product you got was so perfect, like on a technical basis. Like it was like, you know, there wasn't really like, you know, okay, look at like a game like Cyberpunk or most recently Callisto Protocol. There was no patching it. There wasn't, you know, oh, day one update. That didn't exist. It was, no, we have to make this product and it has to be great and we have to release it. So there's an aspect of that I think in modern game development like doesn't exist anymore, which is sad. But and I think that's kind of what I've been playing it. Not only has it been very nostalgic for me because I remember playing it as a kid. So there's an aspect of me that's like, man, I miss this. Like I've missed this video game experience. That it's simple, but it's so perfect. I don't know if it makes sense. Like it's again, it's a very straightforward experience, and that like it throws you in, you experience this, you upgrade, you go through the missions. That's it. I mean, yeah, there is complications of like puzzles that are really good, backtracking that you need to do, stuff like that. But it's a simple experience on the face value that like it's made me realize where modern games are lacking. And I think, you know, actually going hand in hand with the Dead Space remake that just came out and this. Granted, the Dead Space remake did change some stuff over the original and elevate it. This didn't. But there's still something about those two games. They were great as is. And, you know, Dead Space was over a decade ago. You know, Metroid Prime, 21 years ago now. Isn't it sad that when like a remaster of a 21-year-old game is better than some of the brand new AAA titles I've played in the past year, in the past like 4 years, something's wrong to me, you know? I'm not trying to get like critical about like, you know, where gaming is now, by all means, but I think for me, it's more like a hopeful thing of like playing this game brought so much joy and like reconnecting to that era of gaming, that, you know, sort of design mentality towards games and like care. And I think that's another thing too with the Dead Space remake and this, you really see that care. The team that developed EA Motive that did the Dead Space remake, they really care about that property, and you can see it. The level of care and love they put into it, and the things they did change, they're good changes, and they're changes within the reverence of the original game. But I don't know, seeing these two things, I think, come back in so close proximity, I don't know, it's got me very excited, I guess, and like more hopeful for the future of gaming. One, because I'm excited about the Metroid Prime Remastered, because it's really good. Like, it's really great. I think you should play it. If you're a fan of the original, definitely play it. If you've never played Metroid Prime, please buy it and play it. Do yourself a favor. It's so great. And even if you're not really into that sort of style of game, be it, you know, not like heavy-handed storytelling or, you know, not really hand-holding and kind of just like this experience, please, like, do yourself a favor and try it, because like just the atmosphere and the aesthetic and oh my gosh, the music is so good. The amount of times I've been playing this and my wife has walked by hearing the music and is like, dang, that music is like really good. It's amazing. It's so good. Like, the music alone is in a separate category of just like masterpiece. Like, it's so good. I love it so much. And that alone, when I booted up the menu and heard the music for the first time in like, I don't know, 15 years, I was like, oh gosh, I got giddy. I was like, oh my gosh, I missed this. Going back to these two games, they feel very hopeful to me, because it's like, one, Metroid Prime and Dead Space Remake, there's this simplicity to them, which I think is missing in modern gaming. Not saying that, like, you know, there isn't need or space for those big titles of, you know, 100 hours of gameplay and stuff like that. But I think we are starting to see a change, that I think the market is starting to swing back a decade in a good way. Because, I mean, you know, Assassin's Creed announced that they're going back to the roots of Assassin's Creed, more of that linear approach. I think it's amazing. Listen, I don't think Valhalla or Odyssey, I don't think Assassin's Creed ever needed to be Skyrim or The Witcher. I don't think that's ever what it needed to be. So I'm really interested to see that. But I think it's really cool, especially with this year. You see so these different titles, a lot of remakes, and a lot of people are against remakes. I'm kind of for it. One, because, especially in the case of Nintendo, I don't have hundreds of dollars to spend on getting these old games and collecting them, nor do I have the money to spend on the systems to be able to play them. So, you know, for instance, like Metroid Prime, the only way to play it right now, I mean, obviously you can play it on the GameCube, or if you had a Wii or a Wii U, they do have the Metroid Prime trilogy, but really it's like digital. Like, unless you want to spend an arm and a leg to get it physically, or just hunt down a physical copy, the only way to do it is get a digital copy. So in this way, it's kind of nice, because it's like, I want these stories and games to be accessible to the modern audience, for people to experience it that aren't going to be able to. Granted, I don't think Dead Space Remake was as that, but Nintendo in particular, like, I really want a Twilight Princess remaster or something to update it, because I just want to be able to play that. I just want to be able to play it accessibly. And even, like, you know, with the Resident Evil 4 remake coming out next month, that too, I'm like, I just want that to be accessible, you know? So I'm kind of for remakes. Granted, I think they're definitely, I think for me, I'm more against remasters, actually, because I think there have been a lot of remasters where, I mean, I know the GTA trilogy was really bad. There have been other remasters that I did not like and I don't think deserved it. And to me, a remaster where all you're doing is updating it, you know, like, oh, it's a higher resolution. Here, $60 please. I think that's BS. Whereas, like, looking at like Metroid Prime Remastered, which is one, $40, not full 60. But then two, it's not just a remaster. They definitely did graphical overhaul and improvements, and then the controls driven. It's worth it. Or the Dead Space remake is like a completely different game. It's like, absolutely, I will spend $60-$70 on it. That's just me though. They deserve it. I don't know. For me, it's like, why not remaster and remake them and update them on modern consoles and audiences? Because for me, it's like, I don't know, maybe this is weird, but it's like in the way of like art, it's like maintaining it and the health of it. And especially nowadays, like older consoles, especially Nintendo stuff, you know, it's like if you want to get an old console, it's like an arm and a leg. And then to get the games is an arm and a leg, you know? So it's like more and more as time goes on, trying to experience these older games that you grew up with and maybe are a nostalgia thing for you or you just love. Or I always think about like introducing it to other people, like your kids or things like that. It's like impossible nowadays, unless you were smart when you were 10 years old and you decided to keep your GameCube and or your older consoles and all that stuff, or your, you know, Game Boys and all this stuff. Until now, I wasn't smart. I don't have my Game Boy or even my Game Boy Advance SP. I don't have it anymore, so I'm very sad. So getting these remasters is very exciting to me because I'm like, oh man, I don't have these games like other people do. I have friends that have a bunch of old consoles and have these games, but I don't. So I'm like getting the remaster. I'm like, yes, I finally get to experience these games again. And I've been wanting to for years, which I think maybe nowadays is something we take for granted because modern consoles, specifically like I would say post like PS4 to PS5, the last decade really has been so like, oh, I want to replay this game. Okay, I'll just plop it in and it works. And especially now with PS5 being mostly backwards compatible with the PS4, I kept all my PS4 games, so I'm just like, all right, pop this in, I want to play it again. But then again, you know, other things like Nintendo or even older like PS2, PS3 games are like impossible to get nowadays. So the more remasters like that, I feel like it's a sort of like curating, respecting what was there and keeping it alive, because there are so many great stories that I still think, stories and games and experiences that I would love to see other people experience. And I mean, even look at the, you know, look at a game like The Last of Us, which did get a remake, which I thought it was a worthy remake. Again, the graphical overhaul was amazing. For me, it was the accessibility. Playing it on the DualSense controller on the PS5 is just so much better than playing it on the PS4 or the PS3. Oh my gosh. But think about, you know, The Last of Us. What if it was the same as like Metroid Prime or like Nintendo? Like it came out and that was it. Never got re-released on PS4. Never got re-released on PS5. It's not going to come to PC next month. No HBO show. But you think about that, like that's a story that's so good. And in my mind, I'm so happy there's a show of it now because I think everybody should experience for a point once like in their lifetime. I know that seems like over dramatic, but like for me, playing that game for the first time really affected me and it really hit me. So the idea of, you know, that having a life, a decade-long life, that it's coming out on PC next month. It's got a show, stuff like that. You're taking care of what was there and you're passing it on, you know, through generations of people. And I think that's important. So again, having these remasters like Dead Space, especially Dead Space. I mean, Dead Space was a dead franchise before the remake. I'm sorry, but like that wasn't going anywhere. So this remake has revived the franchise, which I think 100% will lead into more remakes and eventually a Dead Space 4. Please, EA, I want a Dead Space 4. Listen, I'm all for a Dead Space 2 and 3 remake. Give me what I want. Dead Space 4. I don't care how much it is. I will lay down my life, please. But like, look at that. Like this remake revived it. And I think it's interesting that, you know, the release of Dead Space Remake, so many people were like, remakes, blah, blah, blah. I'm not gonna buy it. Who cares about remakes? The original's just as great. Dude, the franchise you love is dead. Like, this remake just revived it. Be thankful and get excited about it because you're talking, you know, a decade-long dead franchise is being revived because of a remake. That's amazing. Or look at Metroid Prime. Granted, yes, 2017, I think, Metroid Prime 4 was announced. Where is it? I have no idea. But I do think this is a show of like, damn, this came out. People love it. It's still a freaking great game. Make more of this, release more of it. I'm a big believer in that, like, hey, what you put your money to is what you're supporting. And I think that's part of the reason where I can be very critical, but like, I think for the past decade, we've had a lot of bad games because I think the market switched towards, you know, big open world games, and not necessarily remakes, but just constant reskins. Far Cry has been the same for a decade. Assassin's Creed has been the same for a decade. Call of Duty has been the same for a decade. All this stuff, but we're still buying it. We're still rewarding it. And we still complain about it. Every time Call of Duty comes out, oh, it's trash. Every time Assassin's Creed comes out, oh, it's not like it used to be. Like, guys, why are we buying it? Why are we rewarding it? You know what I mean? Whereas when things like Dead Space Remake comes out, or even Callisto Protocol, because I'm a big defender of Callisto Protocol, or Metroid Prime Remastered, and we all love it. We all like. I haven't seen one person really say a bad thing about Dead Space Remake or Metroid Prime Remaster. Callisto Protocol is a different story, but reward that, celebrate that, because you know, sure, maybe it sucks that the Dead Space Remake is $70 and the original is just great, but do you want more Dead Space? I know you do. I do. Celebrate it. Buy it, reward it, because it's like they see that. Companies do see that. And here's the fact. Words aren't enough. The money is. So the fact that Dead Space Remake has been very successful, that's very exciting to me. I know we'll see more Dead Space in the future now. I feel like very assured in that franchise. Even like Metroid Prime Remastered, it's like I've been really wanting a Metroid Prime 4, mainly because I've been dreaming of having this physically accessible to me and maybe updated. So having a Metroid Prime Remaster is good. In the grand scheme of it, I'm very optimistic. Or even like the Silent Hill 2 remake. Silent Hill 2 is very hard to come by nowadays, unless you emulate. I'm not a huge fan of emulation, but like, kind of ironic, I have the HD trilogy, the HD collection here, which I know a lot of diehard Silent Hill fans hate because there are a couple issues with it. But if you want to do this without emulation, this is one of the only ways to do it, with a PS3 and this. Granted, this is still affordable. It's like $20 on Amazon. But so for me, it's like, okay, I know you Silent Hill fans out there love Silent Hill 2. Silent Hill 2 is a great game. More people should experience that, even if it's not the original vision that you intended. People will still be experiencing it with the Silent Hill 2 remake, and that to me is really cool. I love that. Because it's a story that is worth being told, and it's a story worth being played, and that deserves being played. So it's like, although maybe the remake won't be what you may be expecting it or wanting, isn't it still great that it's alive and well and being told like 20 years later? That's insane. And that's so cool to me. So I think for me, again, I don't know. I guess this is more of a video now on like remakes and remasters and if they're good or not or bad. But I don't know. I guess they're good. I think they're good. Like video game conservation. I know that sounds stupid, but like the fact is that because consoles aren't constantly backwards compatible and they age out, these games become not available. So there's no conservation of it. So for me, the idea of remakes and remasters is the equivalent of like art conservation. It's video game conservation. It's you're restoring this piece of art for a modern audience to experience, to fully get and see. So I'm all for it because it's like, I want these stories to last. If I have kids 15 years from now, I want to be able to show them, well, maybe not Dead Space because it's so gory, or Silent Hill 2. At some point, like it's like Star Wars. It's like, I want to show my kids Star Wars, and think about that. What if Star Wars wasn't re-released? What if they never made it a Blu-ray transfer? That's so sad. And sure, maybe George Lucas added a bunch of stuff to it that we don't like, but at least it's available now for us to show other people and share it around. And if the stories and games that we love are not able to be shared, then like they lose their power, because then it's like, okay, then it is just an experience you pop up, you check into and you get it. It's like a theme park ride. You just experience it and you leave like, oh, cool, I escaped for a couple hours. But then it's like, no, then it loses its effort. Art loses its value of something that is shared and experienced from person to person. And I love that stuff. So for me, yeah, remasters, remakes, I'm all for it because you're conserving what is there and you're bringing the stories to a modern audience for more people to experience and allowing me to be able to share it with more people. I'm all for that. I'm all for that. Anyways, Metroid Prime Remastered is great. You should go play it. $40 on Switch. Why not? You know? And then, you know, Switch, Nintendo, it's never going to go on sale, so just buy it. It's actually coming out physically in like a week or so. I don't have a watch. I just looked at it felt right. Dead Space Remake, play it. Resident Evil 4 Remake, I'm gonna be there. System Shock Remake might be coming out next month. I'll be there. Maybe this is undyingly optimistic, but hey, let optimism win. Be optimistic. Don't be cynical about the market. Anyways, go subscribe to Level Up Gaming. Don't subscribe to me. You can if you want to. I'm not real. I'm not even real. So I'm just a robot. I'm an AI. It's an AI generated video. So go subscribe there. I'll see you later. Goodbye.